Hi, my name is Neelam, and this is the 7 most common foods that are harming or hurting your child. Number 1 is high sugar foods, or foods that contain high fructose corn syrup, which has recently become the cheapest sweetener around. We as a society are addicted to sugar. It's found in everything from ketchup to quote-unquote natural fruit juices to the obvious culprits of cookies, cakes, candies, that sort of thing. For children who are consuming a low protein or a low fiber diet, they've actually will start to crave white foods, which are your refined carbohydrates. So again, your cookies, your cakes, your breads, pastas, and that sort of thing. And it tends to occur at a higher frequency in children with ADD, ADHD, and autism. The brain is the first system in the body to respond to fluctuations in blood glucose levels. So when blood glucose levels decrease, that's when children start to experience irritability and inattention, and they will actually crave more sugar. In children with ADD, ADHD, and autism, it's actually been found that they have impaired glucose metabolism in the brain. So they will consume far larger quantities of sugar before the brain responds to it, leading to symptoms and addiction to sugar. The biggest problem with the consumption of too much sugar is the development of diabetes, and in particular type 2 diabetes, which we're seeing emerge at an alarmingly young age. High fructose corn syrup can be quite devastating on our bodies, and it's actually been found that for children who consume it, they will continue to consume more calories in the 24 hours after having consumed high fructose corn syrup than if they had just had plain table sugar. It will actually trick the body into dampening the body's I'm full signals, and it will actually increase the body's I'm hungry signals. So we eat far more calories than we need to. So with all this no sugar, no high fructose corn syrup talk, you may be tempted to switch to artificial sweeteners, and I would strongly caution you against that. Artificial sweeteners do much the same to the body that high fructose corn syrup does. It does trick it because there's no calories in foods, generally speaking, that have artificial sweeteners in it. We tend to consume more of that because it's misleading to the body. We're consuming foods, yet it's not getting any calories. So we tend to consume far more of those foods. So number 1, absolutely high sugar foods, foods that contain high fructose corn syrup should absolutely be eliminated, or at the very least limited in our diets, and in particular the diets of our children. Number 2 is processed and packaged foods. Hydrogenation is an industrial process that bubbles hydrogen atoms into unsaturated fats, such as your canola, your safflower, your corn oil, creating hydrogenated fats or your trans fatty acids. And this is why the processed and packaged foods are so bad, is because these fats is what allows them to stay on the shelf for months and months and months. They have no nutritional value, and in fact are considered anti-nutrients because they are extremely detrimental to our health. And for children in particular, they will contribute to oxidative stress in the brain. And so for many children with ADD and ADHD, their brains are already under so much oxidative stress that it just magnifies it, and absolutely will contribute to symptoms of inattention, hyperactivity, difficulty focusing. Number 3 is fruits and vegetables containing pesticides. A recent study that was published in the US found that when researchers studied the pesticide breakdown products in the urine of children, those that had high levels of those breakdown products were twice as likely to have being diagnosed with ADHD or autism. And in particular, it's the organophosphates, which were actually first developed for chemical warfare, and they have been linked to behavioral symptoms of ADD, ADHD, such as impulsivity and attention problems. And the 4th food would be your fried foods and fast foods. And this is because when starchy foods are fried, it creates a compound called acrylamides, which have been found to contribute to the development of cancer. So it's actually been found that a typical large order of French fries from any of the fast food restaurants will have almost 300 times more acrylamides than the Environmental Protection Agency will allow in a glass of water. So, you know, again, it's probably no coincidence that as our reliance on fast food and fried foods has increased, the incidence of cancer has also increased. So eliminating these foods from the diets of our children is paramount to raising healthy, happy, successful children. Number 5 is foods that contain artificial dyes. Again, a British study found that the presence of dyes in foods and drinks consumed by children did result in higher incidence of hyperactive behavior and an increased incidence of ADHD. So your typical sources of artificial dyes are going to be your soft drinks, candies, and unfortunately many of the juices out there that advertise themselves as being all natural will often contain dyes. So really, as consumers, it's very important that we are vigilant in reading labels and being very aware of what we are not only purchasing but consuming, and again, very important when we are feeding our children. Number 6 is foods that contain preservatives. And sort of the biggest one, especially when we're talking about children and children's nutrition, are your processed meats, and in particular luncheon meats. Preservatives were first added to food to help prevent spoilage back in the day, you know, before they had fridges and all the rest of it. And now it's just gotten to the point that they're added to everything, and they are far overused, in part probably due to our reliance on the packaged and processed foods again. They've been linked to premature aging, autoimmune disease, and again, many forms of cancer. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, which is considered the gold standard of scientific research, found that when preschool and grade school aged children were fed a diet containing additives after having had a diet of additive-free foods for 6 weeks, they were more likely to experience behaviors of hyperactivity. So it's been linked numerous times, the incidence of ADD, ADHD, and diets containing high levels of preservatives. So again, foods that contain preservatives really should be kept to a minimum in the diet of children. And last but certainly not least is foods that contain glutamates. Glutamates, the most common of which is the monosodium glutamate, or MSG, is a flavor enhancer. MSG is actually naturally found in foods such as meats and cheeses. However, it's nowhere near the levels that it's being added to so many of our foods. It's found in everything from soups, canned tuna, salad dressings, snack foods, and even ice cream. It's actually been reported that Doritos has up to 5 different types of MSG in it. So when added to food, MSG enhances the savory flavor, and it also contributes to our addiction to certain foods. It's by class, it's an excitotoxin and has been found to have very detrimental effects on the nervous system. In fact, it's been linked to obesity and endocrine disorders later in life. You're probably not surprised after having gone through the first 6 categories to hear that excess consumption of MSG has been linked to the development of ADD, ADHD, and autism. MSG can go by so many different names, and it's often a chemical part of other additives. So if you'd like a comprehensive list of alternative names and sources of MSG, please visit my website, www.neelamspeaks.com. Well, there you have it, the 7 most common foods that are hurting or harming your child. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to email me with any questions or topic ideas that you have for upcoming video and audio files. Thank you for joining me, and have a fantastic day.